Welcome back to another episode of the Canon on the Boomer Bus channel. I'm your host Terry, and today, Snyder Cut at long at last. My love has come along. It's been a wild ride. I'm not going to dip into the Snyder Cut stuff too much as far as the journey, because I've talked about that, but we can talk about that if y'all want. Don't worry, I will talk to you. But I want to talk mostly about the movie. So, finished it. It was a journey. Some people's like, you got to experience the Snyder Cut. I got to agree. You got to experience the Snyder. It was an experience because I had stuff to do in the middle at the start and stop so much. It probably ended up being more close to 7 hours than 4 hours, but we did it. It's an experience. Overall, I have to say it was a different movie. Now, I have to go back to my original Justice League thoughts. I talked about them. I reviewed it, obviously. Justice League, unfortunately, for me, was a movie that went down the more I saw it, because the first time I was captive of the phenomenon of just falling into, self-fulfilling prophecy, going into my own bias. I wanted to love it, and so I did. And, I wouldn't even say I wanted to love it. I wanted to love Snyder's version. Once I knew Whedon changed it, I was like, okay, let's see. And I didn't understand how much was changed at the time. But what I will say is, coming out of it, one thing I remember 100% saying to my brother when we watched it, and what I remember recording, was that I came out feeling like the DC could do what Marvel did. And not that, I don't know, it was weird because not that I ever doubted that. I like DC more than Marvel, but overall, I love all that stuff. I love the MCU. I love the superhero stuff in general. And so I remember really being excited that the DC was doing something different, because Nolan is really the first one to introduce us to that. I know some people love Burton, but Nolan was the one to say, look, we can be grounded. And as a writer, someone that loves this stuff, grounded speaks to me. And I was like, yeah, you can do that. And then Snyder picked up where he left off. And I wouldn't even say left off, because there's this whole debate about Christopher Nolan. Look, the man wrote the story for Man of Steel. He was heavily involved in that. And so it had the same vibes. And I'm like, this is good, because much like I didn't want the Fox stuff to go to Disney, because I like things to have variety. And I didn't need everything to be the MCU. So the MCU had its high points, but it had its weakness to me. And I liked the parts that DC brought that was different. And so I always felt like that's what I want. And maybe that turned into, I don't know if they can do what Marvel does. But after seeing the Justice League, I was like, yeah, they can do what Marvel does. They can do the popcorn movie, bright colors, laughing type stuff. They could do that. They absolutely can. And I was like, if this was Joss Whedon from the beginning rather than some mix up, this probably would have worked really well. And then the more I watched it, I disliked it. And then I went kind of back up. I was like, there's some real good parts in that. And this is what I love. This was an exercise in movie making. This is going to be studied in movie and director classes for years to come. Because without the information, that's what organizations thrive on. Without the information, we have to speculate. We have to talk about this scene and this decision and whose was it. Now, even with seeing Snyder's cut, we see some stuff that was clearly his original shots, but we still don't know who made the decision, but we have more information. And typically organizations, they thrive on you not knowing information. And so when we saw the Whedon cut, we were like, well, whose is that? Is that Zack's? Is that Josh's? And now we have a little bit better idea. And so now that I saw both together, I think about Yeah, I mean, we obviously could do it whatever way we want, but it's not necessarily because of Whedon or because of Snyder. It's just these characters, and that shined through. Anyway, so watching this, I have to say it was a different experience. It was much more in line with the feeling I had with BVS, the feeling I had with Man of Steel. Now, I talk so much about Batman vs. Superman. And I'm going to say this also. I don't understand where all these Snyder fans came from. I see people, toxic Snyder people, and I have to often wonder, where were these people? I've had many, and people don't understand. This was before this channel. I had many debates online about Zack Snyder, or not even really him, well, about him, but Batman vs. Superman, Man of Steel. I'm talking about knockout, drag 'em out battles, many of them. And I didn't see these people. I saw the negativity. Just like you saw in Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb and everywhere else, and the articles and the comments online, the tweets, the memes. I saw the negativity. Where were all y'all at? But anyway, I enjoyed that stuff. And this feels much more at home with the stuff that came before it. So that I have to say off the bat. But then I gotta say, while I do enjoy this so much more than the other Justice League, there was some parts that I preferred in other Justice League, and that's okay to say. I think the dialogue, like, again, there's many scenes that are the same scene, but just written different. And I have to say, there's so much more cheesy and cringy moments in Zack Snyder's Justice League than there were in Joss Whedon's. And obviously it's 4 hours, so there's more room for that. But just certain things, again, that I thought I just thought they were better. And again, that comes from different perspective, punching it up. Like, the one that stands out to me, one of the parts I really liked about the other Justice League was the Wonder Woman. When she comes back after throwing the bomb up in the air, she lands down, she blocks all the bullets from the terrorists trying to kill people. And in in the Snyder cut, they say, I don't believe it. And she says, well, believe it. And it's like, okay, whatever. That's very not eventful. But in Joss Whedon's, it was like, I don't believe it. What are you? And she said, a believer. And I'm like, that was good. That was good for so many reasons. It was layered. It was good writing. I like that. And that's just one example of a number of different lines that I thought were better in the Whedon cut. This cut, still better. Honestly, unedited is still better than Whedon's, but for this, I would say it definitely could have been edited down. Shout out to my man John Campea. Talks a lot about the extended version of BVS. Now, to me, I think the extended version of BVS is equal to the theatrical. These people that are like, it's a totally different movie. No, it's not. This Snyder Cut is a totally different movie. The extended version of BVS is not a totally different movie. It fleshes out some things, but those things were pretty much hinted at in the theatrical. And he would always say, now to me, I'm like, both of them are equal. To me, he would always say it was a little over bloated. I didn't really agree. I thought everything they put in there made sense. For this, I agree. And he also said, this is a little bloated, and I agree. It just, there's many scenes that you just didn't need. There was oftentimes I'm watching and I'm like, okay, we don't need to do this. Like there's so many parts. There's a part that I can't remember, but there's certain parts like Aquaman leaving the bar and walking out to the sea or the ocean, whatever it is. And it's like, okay. And again, Zach loves his slow motion. That's one thing I got to point out, that it didn't bother me. Obviously it works sometimes, but I'm like, good God, This man loves his slow motion. It reminded me too much of 300. Like the whole Themyscira scene, I mean, the fighting part once they got out of the building was cool, but other than that, I was just like, this is very 300. Like it, and again, dialogue, the whole show them your fear. We have no fear. I was like, that was so lame. That was stupid. That was just bad dialogue to me. But again, it was very 300 and it was just a lot of slow-mo, and through the movie is a lot of slow-mo. I'm just like, okay. Like when Barry does stuff, it makes sense. Other than that, I'm just like, okay. But still, I still would say, like, you know, overall it's better, but I kind of forgot my point. But anyway, getting back to it, I think that, while you had some of that editing issues where you had spots where it was just like, okay, we don't really need this, or we could shorten this up. Or there was many parts where I was like, I understand why they shortened this up. Now, Cyborg seeing his mother in his grave and then digging it up and putting the mother box in there. And then later when they was like, where's the mother box? And he went and got it. Like, that's not a scene you need to cut. Like, that's very rich context to what happens. And cause I remember in the theatrical, I was like, where did he just get that mother box from? We haven't even seen it yet. Like, they cut out the parts where it's in the closet. They did everything. I was like, okay, where did he just get that from? That was random. And then his dad dying. Like, there's a lot of parts that I was like, they shouldn't have cut out. But then there's a lot of parts in the Snyder version where I'm like, they could have cut this out. Like even the opening, not the very opening, but the opening with Bruce Wayne right into town, it was just like, Jesus, okay, did y'all need to do all this? And so there's parts, and there's one part I can't remember, but it was just like really lingering, and I was like, do we really need to do this right now? So there's definitely some editing stuff, but I thought the pacing was good as far as really, like, I've always said, I wish they did the break it up into parts. Now, they originally said miniseries, but I believe this was 6 or 7 parts. Or they said a 4-part miniseries. If you just would have broke it up into parts, they had it in this movie. Obviously, that gets you more buzz week by week, but I would have loved that. I would have absolutely loved that. And it's something about it. I don't know if more people gonna do this. This is an old school technique, but putting that title card with the part whatever, and then cutting right to the scene, it just felt better. I don't know, I just like that. So there's that part. But yeah, overall the editing, there's some stuff they definitely could took out. It needs to be 4 hours, but I understand. Now on the flip side of that, we got a lot of character development. We got a lot of exposition. We got a lot of other stuff that just didn't make sense in the other version, but in this version it really had purpose. And that's one of the things. And again, people try to fight me because I was being realistic about the Snyder Cut. People try to fight me about a lot of stuff. All these fans come out of nowhere, but I was in the trenches fighting for BVS and all that. One of the things people used to say a lot is that Snyder seemed like he didn't plan anything. Like, he didn't really write stuff. He didn't think about stuff. But when you see the unedited version, you see the full Snyder cut, it's clear that he thought about everything. And all these things had something to do with something. Now, BVS, again, there's definitely parts where I'm like, they might have edited it down, but you could clearly see what he's hinting at. And then this one is just more explicit. It shows you all the things, and you see that it's a full, complete, dynamic story. It's not just some random throw in the bucket. So I hope that people take that lesson away. And I mean, just not even the background and motivations, which I think Steppenwolf benefited most from, but just the interactions. There's so many interactions. The interaction between Wonder Woman and Aquaman when they're at the gravesite. the interaction after they decide what they're going to do on the base of Steppenwolf, and Aquaman's asking Flash, yo, is Victor all right? And it's a lot of different small interactions that just add up to the chemistry. And I wouldn't even say add up, but shows you examples of what the chemistry could be. And we didn't really know that with the Whedon cut. So there's that. And then, yeah, just overall, I just thought it was stronger. I definitely reposted a video that I watched, it's still on my list, that outlines what Snyder's Justice League arc was about. And everything you saw in this movie was pretty much said. So I've been telling people for a while, there shouldn't be too many surprises. Now, the Joker, that wasn't really planned. There's some other stuff that wasn't planned, but for the most part, we knew what the story was. Now, one thing I didn't say, people kept saying it ended on a cliffhanger. I don't know about that. One thing I'll say is that the first Justice League was supposed to end where they failed. Now, you'll notice there's a weird cut where they go to the nightmare sequence, and then they cut it to make it seem like Bruce was dreaming. But originally, the first Justice League was supposed to end on the nightmare sequence because they didn't win. And so the whole thing was they followed that train of they didn't win. And here is what that whole world looks like. And now we got to send Barry back in time to warn Bruce Wayne. So, and that connects to BVS. So they took parts of that and they cut it up where they still left it as an open, like Darkseid is out there looming, but they didn't make it a complete cliffhanger like I thought, which was, okay, we didn't accomplish the mission and now the world is doomed. And so instead they cut flashbacks with Cyborg to see kind of what that world might be when they were trying to resurrect Superman. So, but still, everything that happened wasn't really a surprise, but it was just executed so well. It was so much better. And so I enjoyed that. I enjoyed a lot of it. I think the ramp up, obviously with the time, but in general, the ramp up was just so much better. They hinted at certain stuff. It was just, man, there was some parts I got emotional because you made me more invested, and overall, it was great. I think I'll do something. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it will be. Maybe it'll be a scene by scene comparison. Maybe it'll be a deep dive. Maybe it'll be just a part 2. But I think I'll do something else to really dive into the Snyder Cut. But as of now, I just have to say I like this so much better. And what I will say that we knew about Zack Snyder, this wasn't going to change people's minds. But what we knew about him is that what he lacks in dialogue and story, he makes up for in heart and passion. And this movie has so much more heart. It has so much more passion. And as somebody that was an avid lover of the Man of Steel movie and everything else, you gotta say, he had this plan. I wouldn't say all along, but this was the arc of Superman. So many people complained about his Superman, and it's like, it's clearly setting up for him to find a reason to be that Boy Scout. Like, yes, we all know he's the big blue Boy Scout, and in the past, there was no reason. This gave us a reason. Him having a second chance. Him seeing what the world is. And I like that a little bit better in the Joss Whedon version, where the world is really down because Superman left. Him seeing what the world did or what happened without him, and really taking that all in to be the best version of himself and accepting his role. That's what Whedon was aiming towards. And so I absolutely love that. And I mean, all the little stuff, the anti-life equation, the whole time travel thing with Barry, the ability for Cyborg to communicate with the mother boxes and all that. So many great things. Overall, just loved it, man. I loved it. So go to the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe. Let me know. Thumbs up, subscribe, and share it around. And remember, if you heard it, it's official canon.